So wrapper is OOP oriented. It is null versus primitive default values. So if you say default values for byte, sort, int, long, float, double, char, boolean, we have certain default values. So and in the wrapper classes, because it is a class, so the default value of any class is null. So it will be easy to decide to set nothing to hold to the data structure. What does it mean? It means that suppose you are having a attribute called salary in the employee object. So if you are storing employee into some say database, because salary, if you mark as a primitive data type, the default is 0. So setting the salary 0 may be having the different meaning of setting no salary. So if you are using wrapper class instead of int, if you use the wrapper class that is integer, then you can set value as a null. Null means no value. Instead of saying 0 value, we have to say no value. So that is the benefit over the primitive type in wrapper classes, that you can set the default value as null. Handling big data, it is very much important to handle the big data. We have seen in the few example back, we were trying to do the factorial of big number. So if I give factorial of 25 or something, then it was giving me very much absurd record. Even if I use long primitive data type, it was not solving the problem. So we have to look for some wrapper class which can hold the big size data. So in that case, we need to use some wrapper class. So in case of long value, I can use big integer. You can use integer if it is not that much long. So that is helpful because of wrapper classes. It is good. It is useful when you convert from one data type to another data type. So once you convert from primitive data type to wrapper classes, or if you convert from say string to integer, or integer to string, string to float, float to string, that time it will be helpful using the wrapper class to do that level of that kind of conversion. Comparison is very easy using wrapper classes. Suppose you want to use two integers, int say 5 and second int is say 3. So generally we write as if I is greater than j, y, or some I is greater than j or something like that, we put into two variables and then we will do the comparison. So that comparison may not be that comparison can be improved using wrapper classes. So wrapper classes have a static method where using those methods we can compare from one data type to another data type. From one data to another data. So it has a static method, as I said. Auto boxing and unboxing, these are the two concepts which came in Java 1.5. We will see what is the auto boxing and unboxing. Auto boxing is basically converting primitive to corresponding wrapper class object. So that is auto boxing. So it will do the auto conversion from say integer to its int to integer, and unboxing, it is other way, converting wrapper object to primitive. So auto boxing and unboxing, that is very commonly used in the programming. So we will see how we can do in the practical way. Okay, let's move to the Eclipse and try to do some practical. Let's close it. Let's give one class, say test wrapper classes, a class. So before that, I will tell you wrapper classes are where we can find. So we have rt.jar which has a lot of packages. So if I take the example of say integer dot class, So integer is available in java.lang. Okay, if I look for big integer, that is available in java.math. If I look for character, that is available in java.lang. If I look for boolean, boolean is available in java.lang. So you have seen that these are the wrapper classes, and it is available in different packages. Okay, so let's try to use a few of them. Okay, let's create one main method. Let's have something integer 0, say 10. If you print this value, you will just see the value of that I is 10. This is this is how we use the primitive type. Okay, now what happens if I try to use wrapper classes? So wrapper, there is something called, as I said, auto boxing. So auto boxing is to convert primitive to wrapper. So I'll say integer is equal to, integer has a static method, say value of. So if I say value of, I can pass the value integer, I can pass value string, and I can pass the value string and its radix. If you see the definition of explanation of each method, the value of int, it returns an integer instance representing the specific int primitive type. So if I say here value of I, then it is converted to integer object. This is called auto boxing. So once you do the print for integer, it will print the same thing, but as you know that when I am calling this one, it will call its toString method. So whatever toString method will be written on this class, integer class, it will execute it. So if you print this one, both will print 10 and 10, but let's try to see the what is written in this toString method. So if I go to this method, if I go to toString method of integer class, what it says, it just take the values and convert into a string. It will call the toString another method which is written here. It will take your int, then if it is equal to minimum value, then it will return something like this. Okay, if it is, then it will try to find out, do some logic here and there, and then finally it will give you a string. And so this value is a string. So if you say toString here, you will get the value of that 10. This same thing, because automatically internally it is calling the toString only. So this is way you can convert from int primitive to wrapper. Let's see what is unboxing. Unboxing is other way. Let's have this integer and convert, say int j is equal to integer dot int value. So it will give you primitive data type. Okay, so this is the conversion from wrapper to primitive, and this is conversion from primitive to wrapper. Primitive to wrapper is called auto boxing, and wrapper to primitive is called unboxing. Okay, the use of doing these things is based on the case. So I have explained what is the benefit of doing that. So it depends what benefit will suit you while you do the programming, and wrapper class will solve the problem. Okay, now let's do something comparison. So comparison is generally, suppose we want to say sys out 3 greater than 4. So I know that we will get the false because 3 is less than 4. This is kind of a integer, and this is also a integer. So both you are trying to compare. How we can do comparing using wrapper classes? So we will say that you can have integer value 1, that is integer dot value of 3, or you can say something like this also, new integer, then you can pass 3. So both are possible. Only thing here you are calling the value of that is a static method, and here you are creating the object and giving the value as constructor. Okay, constructor parameter. So let's say value second, new value, that is 4. So if you try to compare, you can say that value 1 dot compare, and the integer, that is value 2. This way you can compare. So value 1, if you comparing the primitive data type, it will give you the true and false. But if you're doing using object compare to wrapper class compare to, it will give you the value of how much it is different. If I use 5 here, okay, so if it is less than that, it will return -1. If it is greater than that, it will return plus. So if value is 5, it is 3, it will give you positive value. Okay, both are same, it will give you 0. What is happening here? So compare to is the method which is written in integer class. So what it does, it comparing this two values. So if I go inside, you will see more detail here. If x is less than y, then return -1. If it is equal, return 0. If it is more than x is more than y, then return 1. So this is how it will do the comparison. Okay, so what happens here? Every say for example integer wrapper class, it's a final, so we cannot extend it, and it extends number. So number is the class, and it implements comparable. Comparable is the a interface which help you comparing one object to another object. So when you implement comparable, you have to override compare to or compare. Okay, so these methods you can try out. Okay, so compare to method is, I will tell you in detail when I will tell you about comparator and comparable. So far as of now you can understand, if any class extends, implements comparable or a comparator, that class will help you comparing two objects. So that's reason we are easily calling the comparator here. Okay. So let's try to see something float also. Okay, before that moving, as I said, it is converting from primitive to wrapper, and if you see this figure here, it also converts from string to wrapper and string to primitive type, like that. So in case of integer, if I say integer value 3 is equal to string, say integer dot value of a string, here I will give a string integer value in the form of a string. Okay, if I print it value 3, I should be getting 1 to 5. Okay, now what if I give one character inside this string, which is I wanted to give numeric, I wanted to give integer. So when I'm trying to convert this one, convert to integer, it should break, because this is the not valid data. Okay, so this is not a valid data, it will give you exception. This is required when you are in your enterprise application, when you are taking the numeric value from user interface, where user is free to enter anything and where it is expected to. So we will use this kind of things for validation. So suppose you are taking few user input from you user interface, say web application, if you are taking the input from web page, so that will pass as a string. So on the server side you may need to do the validation. So if you have some value like this which is having some character, so it will throw the exception, and that you can revert back to UI saying that invalid input. Okay, so that's one benefit of using the wrapper class also. Okay, so suppose you are taking the value from some input, so it has some method called parse int. So parse int will we have like similar to this one value of then giving that parameter as a string. Here also you can use the similar thing. Okay, if you do that, if you provide some invalid data, it will give you exception here. Okay, you have to provide the valid input. So using wrapper class you can do the validation also. So we have seen doing the validation, we have seen doing the comparison. Let's try to see the impact of, say, float. So we have, suppose you are taking float, say float value equal to float, okay, float dot value of float, you can take the primitive, okay, or if you can take as a string also. Suppose you are giving dot something like this, so this is the float value. If you print float value, you can print the value of float here. Okay, let's see what happens if I say float f1 is equal to, give the same you have to mark as a f. Then if you take another value f2 and say give 101. Okay, if you take here, let's say another float value in terms of object, okay, same value you are taking here, so it will float value 1, float value 2. Now let's try to compare sys out here, say f1 is less than f2. Let's see what is the value of this. F1 is less than, so it is f1 is less than f2, that is true. Similarly you can do here float value 1 dot compare. Here also you can do the similar thing. So if you get the value of this output, float 1 is less than float 2, so that's when you will be getting the value is -1. Okay, so this wrapper class also implements the comparable, and you can use the compare to method. So the benefit of using the wrapper classes is it helps in the comparing the values. Okay, so most time you will be using say float dot parse, float dot integer dot parse, float dot value of. Okay, so you have something, so say here string has also a lot of static methods. So string dot value of boolean, string dot value of char, value of char array, double, float, int, long, and object. That one also you can utilize the string class here. So suppose you are saying that sys out string dot value of say float you are giving say f1 here, so it will just present the string. So this is useful when you are trying to print some primitive values to outside, so that will go as a string. So if you run it, you will see the value of float here, the last output. Okay, so we have seen that from one data type to another data type. Let's see how we can do one data type to another data type. Suppose you want to convert from integer to double, so I would say sys out integer to double. So double dot value of string, and here you say that string dot value of say integer I am giving something like this. Okay, let's print it. So it will give the double value of that integer. Similarly, if you want to say integer dot value of, let's see, if you have something here, you have to provide say a string, so I am giving string dot value of any double. Okay, if you print, it will print the, see here what is the exception. It says that for input this is invalid. Okay, so because it cannot truncate this one. So if you see, print this one, it will give the integer value. Okay, so Let's try to do something. Say integer dot, let's see what other capability we have. So if you see here, it has the documentation of what exactly parts int, and when you take the string what happens, and when you take the radix. So these things you can browse and print it and see that what behavior it will provide you. So as a Java programmer, you need to, it's good to go through that APIs, try to learn most of the APIs. It will help you doing the better programming and trying to find the solutions. Okay, so I think we have covered most of things. Handling big data already we have shown. Let me show you that example again. So we have something called test factorial. Okay, so we have something called factorial. So here if you see here, I'm giving an input, and input I am giving an integer, and the output is coming as a big integer. So in big integer you have few, suppose you want to print 1, so it has few constants, 1, 10, 0, something like that you can do. So that those things are like static variables which you can print anywhere, you can use it. So I think in integer also you may have some min value, max value. So what is the max value and what is the min value, you can find out using integer. So if you want to see that, if I say sys out, let's try to see what are the, see float dot max exponent, what is the value, what is the value of, if I say integer dot max value, what is the value if I say integer dot size. Okay, what if I say integer dot integer class, integer dot min value. Okay, so these things let's try to print and see. So this is float maximum exponent is 127, integer max value is this one, integer size it is 4 byte, it is minimum is this one. Okay, that way you can find out the detail. If I want to find out something called, let's see in big integer what are the things available. One, two, zero, something like those variables are, those constants are available here. Say if you say float max exponent, max value, minimum exponent, min normal, nan. What is nan here? If you print the value of nan, is like something not applicable kind of numeric value, you have something like that. So if you try to find out documentation here, it says that a constant holding a not a number value of type float, it is equivalent to the value written by code float dot int bits to float. Okay, so the value of this is 0.0 f. So if you do have something called integer also, no, there is nothing called nan here, so that is only for float. So like that you can browse the capabilities of these wrapper classes. That's all about wrapper classes. So we will see, let's see about enum. Enum is again a type of, it's kind of a class where you are grouping predefined constants. So enum was introduced in Java 5. So enum, that is not enclosed in a class. Okay, so and can be declared with only the public or default modifier. Okay, just like a non-inner classes. Okay, so enums can be declared as their own class or enclosed in another class, and the syntax of assessing an enum numbers depends on where the enums are declared. Okay, let's try to see something. So let's close everything and create a class called test enum. Okay, so let's create one main method. So enum are kind of a, you can say that enum month of year. Okay, so here you will be giving some constant, say January, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November and December. Okay, so these are the enum values. So what I have done, I have grouped those constant into a enum and say that month of year. How can I use it? What I need to say, I need to say just month of year. So if you see here, it will denote as E. Okay, if you see month of year, that is marked as a E, so it means that it is a enum. So month of year, then you can directly call the whatever whatever constant you can call. Okay, so because it is a enum, so you can call all the constants whatever you have defined here. Then there are few methods, that is value of values and value of class enum type and string name, that will return the enum. Okay, so if I want to find out, I will say fab. So what it will do, it will call the enum constants to string, and to string will give you the value of the to string value of that constant. Okay, so any enum will have a corresponding to string. Okay, because it is enum, you can have compare to, you can compare one enum value to another one. Okay, so these are the enums method, what are the possible values, possible methods on enum. So it has name, so if you give the name and say get class and see the value, so it is a string. Okay, so if I say if February dot get class, then you should be getting the enum. So this is a type of class, which is month of year, which is a enum. So it is a enum class which has certain constants, group of constants that you can use it. So suppose I want to I am going to employ class. Okay, in that I am creating one more variable, and that variable is of that type. So like string is a class, int is a primitive data type, enum is also a type of data type, because that is a type of class where you are grouping few constants. So we can give the enum here. So enum is what we have created, enum month of year. It is not accessible here. Let's create outside. Let's create one enum. So we say that month of year. Okay, because it is already defined, we will remove from here. Okay, so let's create method month of, sorry, let's create the variable month of year, that is the data type, and this will be a, say that month of birth. Okay, so let's create one setter getter for this. So now I can set the value of birth, month after birth to employee. So let's create one employee. Employee emp is equal to new employee. I am giving id as 1, name say, okay, then I say emp dot set month of the birth. So this one, what I need to do, I need to access this month of the year and say that this is August, so that employee was born in August month. So if you return the value of that method get, okay, so this will give you August. So this is, you are printing the enum. Internally it is calling the to string when you are trying to print like this, and because it is enum, when you say get class, it is the enum class. Okay, like that we have done in the previous line. Okay, now if you see that what are the methods available on the enum. So if I say emp dot get month of year, these are the methods available. Name, ordinal is the position of that constant in that enum. Okay, so if I say ordinal here, it is printing 7. 7 means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it starts with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. 7 is for August. So ordinality is give you the position of that constant in the enum. Let's see what other methods it has. To string, that is fine. Get class, get declaring a class, that is okay. These are the constants. And what I say, enum dot value of August. So I get the enum here that I have said earlier, that is August. I'm saying dot that enum dot value of August. So it will return the, if you see, value of, it will return the enum class. So that is month of the year. So if I give a wrong constant here, it should not be correct. Okay, so it will give the exception saying that no enum constant for AAUZ. The actual value is AUZ. So these things are required. Suppose I want to find out the enum for September. So what I will do, sys out, I will say month of the year dot value of, say, September, because I have said only SCP, then it should create the problem. So the purpose of creating the enum is to communicate the same constant. So wherever enum will, suppose wherever I want to use August, September, October, or any month of the year, what I can do, I can use that enum, so that my communication will be in the same language, and there will be, and it will be always a validation on top of that. If I want to pass anything else, it will throw the exception. Okay, so this value of is very much used method. Then what is the values? Values will basically print all the constants of that enum class. So it will print the month of the year. Okay, so it is giving the true string value of that values. Values is nothing but here month of the year in form of array. So what I need to do, I need to iterate it. So for example, I will say int I is equal to 0, I less than. So if I say in a month dot values dot length, then I plus plus. So if I say sys out how will I do it? Value of, I need to pass the string. How will I get the string here? Okay, let's do one thing. Because this is the array, so I'm using the collection here, so don't worry about that much. Basically I want to print the number of month of the year in the iterative way. Okay, so if I print, I should be getting all the values of this enum class. So you have seen that you can use the value of, you can use the ordinal, you can convert that array. So get when I say values, it will get the array of constant of that enum. Then you can iterate it and uh, and print the and use that each of the constant. Okay, now let's see something little bit more detail about enum. So when you declare enum like this, it is a kind of constants. Okay, so every one is a instance of that enum class. So January is the instance of uh, mother of year, month of year enum class. Feb is the instance of this, and March is instance of this. So what you need to do, suppose I say that January. Okay, I'm creating a description of this January. So January, say I will visit, so I can say that in January I will visit some place, in February I will visit few place, one place, and in the December I will visit some place. So I will visit, say, Delhi. In February I will visit Mumbai. In March I will visit Lucknow, then something called Bangalore, then say Mysore. In June, Nainital. In July, I want to go to, say, Kashmir. August, I want to go to again Delhi. September, Mumbai. October, I want to go to Bangalore. November, Chennai, and December I want to go to Patna. Okay, so these are the constants which are parameterized constants, parameterized enum values. So it means that in enum value I can provide some extra information that will go as a constructor values. So here what I need to do, I need to create the constructor. Okay, so this is a case city to visit. Okay, and then I will say string city to visit. Okay, let's make it private because this is the attribute of this enum class. The attribute of this enum class is the value whatever I am giving here. Okay, this is the city to visit. Okay, so it will say that this dot city to visit equal to, let's create getter method. Setter is not required because we are not taking the value from there. So I will only create get. Okay, so let's try to see how we can use it. uh, I will say that in the employee is month of the year, and suppose I want to say that month of year dot August, and say get city to visit. So it should give me a string value of where to visit in the August month. So in August month someone can visit Bangalore. So this will tell that if this is the month where to visit. So the logical point to say here is, when you create the enum, you can provide the extra information about the enum, and that you can use when you are trying to use the enum. Okay, so very few example, like if suppose you are giving some enum class, uh, suppose you want to give the name of students in a enum. For each student you can print their name, their address, their hobbies, and corresponding you will have the constructor values here. Okay, an attribute and some getters, and you can use all of them. So when to use enum, when you have something predefined constants that you can use. Suppose you are doing you are managing the status of employee is rejected or employee is selected, candidate is selected, or anything that happens in the case of your library is book is dispatched, book is ordered, book is rented, something like these are the status. So instead of writing that status whenever you are operating on those books, instead of writing those status as a string value, you can use the constant. Suppose you are, what will happen if you are using the string, the communication, the language of communication can be different. So it's good to use the common communication channel. So in those cases enum helps a lot. Okay, so let's try to see the summary of these few last session. What we have done, we have understood the object class in detail. We talk about wrapper classes, we talk about inheritance, abstract class, interface. Okay, we talked about interface. We took a closer look of class and browse a lot of useful methods in the class, and then we gone through enum. Okay, maybe in the coming section I will talk about few more detail about string class. We will take you about comparable, comparator, exceptional, and collections, and a lot of other features of Java.